And we are going to continue with the 15th chapter of Black Hearts in Battersea. Simon and Sophie are reunited at Chipping's castle. The proof has been given that they are, in fact, the rightful heirs. They both have the Battersea tuft, and now Sophie has gone to inform the Duke. A pair of legs was dangling just above her. Peering past them through the flutter of snowflakes, Sophie could just see the outline of an extremely large air balloon above her head. It was rising and tugging his Grace upward as he clung to it with one hand, while with the other he held on to the guttering of the attic roof. "Your Grace! Oh, pray take care!" Sophie gasped. She pulled at his legs with all her strength, and then, discovering a dangling rope, ran it through a staple evidently intended for mooring, and dragged the balloon and its passenger back to safety. "Ah, thank you, Sophie, my child," said the Duke, wiping off the snowflakes which had settled on his hair and eyebrows. "I was just wondering how much longer I could hang on. The mooring rope slipped out of my fingers after I had pumped in the gas. Have you made it fast? Capital. Is it not an excellent balloon? I am delighted with my work. Quite delighted. It surpasses all my expectations as to its buoyancy." "Yes, indeed, it's beautiful," Sophie said, dragging his Grace indoors, as if she feared that he, too, might take off into the night air. "Only think, Uncle William, Simon is here, and Justin, and Dr. Field, and Mrs. Buckle. Simon has the Battersea tuft, which proves he is my brother and your nephew, and Justin is Mrs. Buckle's son. Oh, it is all most complicated, and I am sure they have had such adventures. Oh, pray do come and hear all about it." The Duke looked quite bewildered by this stream of news, all delivered at top speed, but he permitted Sophie to pull him down the winding stairs into the great hall. In no time the whole party was sitting down to crimped fish, pickled cockles, venison, and whortleberry pies, and a huge platter of spiced parkin. While they ate, Sophie and the Duchess bombarded Simon and Dr. Field with questions, and each told his tale. Mrs. Buckle put in explanations until the whole story of Buckle's plot and the Hanoverian conspiracy was made plain. Sophie then recounted how she had heard Buckle disclose his intentions to poison the Duke as soon as Justin returned. Justin, who had been looking more and more miserable and apprehensive as the tales were told, revealing him as the unwitting tool of all this villainy, now broke down altogether and fairly boo-hooed. "None of it's my fault," he howled. "I never asked to be swapped as a babby, and prosed and preached at, and made into a duke. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo! Nobody likes me, and I shall be turned out into the snow to starve. I wish I was back on Inchmore with my ma, I do," the Duchess exclaimed warmly. "None the less, Justin dear, nobody thinks of putting you out in the snow. Nobody blames you for what you didn't know about. I am sure we all pity you for having such a thoroughly unpleasant father. You can go back to Inchmore if you wish next summer. In winter I am sure it must be most disagreeable, and you had best stay here at Chipping's with your mother, who has kindly agreed to help Mrs. Gossage with the housekeeping. Now stop crying, and do not be such a great Gabby. Mrs. Buckle, perhaps he is overtired and should be put to bed." "Indeed he should, your Grace. I declare I'm ashamed of him," exclaimed his mother, and whisked him away, crying, "Come along, my ducky-do, and don't make such a show of yourself, my precious lambkin, or Ma will be obliged to give you 2 Gregory's powders and a spoonful of calomel. Look at Simon. He's not crying." Simon looked pale and heavy-eyed, however, as the Duchess noticed with kindly concern. Dr. Field quickly finished the tale of their adventures. They had turned Dark Dimity over to the preventives at Chipping's Fishbury. The 2 recovered sufferers from Quincy had been allowed to ship as deckhands on a collier going south, and learning that the Duke was at Chipping's, the rest of the party had come straight there on a hired sleigh, only slightly hindered by wolves on the way. The Duke looked quite bewildered at this tale. He always found it hard to take in many new ideas all at once, and as everybody was fatigued with emotion and excitement, they decided to go to bed and leave the discussion of plans till next day. All night the snow fell steadily, and by the morning it lay 5 feet deep on the castle court, and the drifts were 3 times the height of a man. From the embrazured windows nothing could be seen but a white wilderness in which the trees seemed to be standing waist deep, but at dawn a pale sun rose, drawing brilliant sparkles from the icicles on the branches. "Now," said Dr. Field, who was sitting with the Duke and Duchess at a late breakfast, "we have only 2 problems." "What are they?" asked Sophie, pouring his chocolate. She already felt a great confidence in his practical sense. "You say that Cobb sent the Bow Street runners round to Rose Alley?" "Yes, but I fear they will have found nothing. The Twites had been warned by Jem." There has been nothing about it in the papers," the Duchess put in. "Nevertheless, Mr. Cobb nor the Bow Street officials knew that Buckle... neither Mr. Cobb nor the Bow Street officials knew that Buckle was involved?" "No, for I overheard him plotting with Midwink after Mr. Cobb went to Bow Street. So Buckle, at present, thinks himself secure, and knows nothing of the loss of the Dark Dew and Dark Dimity. Our 2 problems are to discover where the Hanoverians now keep their arms, and to reach London fast enough to take them by surprise." "I have a very good notion of where the Hanoverians now put their arms," the Duke said. "Just before we left, Buckle asked me if he might house his fossil collection in the Battersea Castle vaults. I said I had no objection, and gave him the key." "Of course!" exclaimed Sophie. "That's why Midwink said they'll never think of looking there. You can enter the vaults from the tunnel, can you not? They could move the things in with very little risk of being seen." "And as for travelling to London," pursued the Duke, "I have the most suitable equipage upstairs that could be devised, a strong, commodious, elegant air balloon, capable of carrying at least 8 persons and their luggage for hundreds of miles. Simon, my boy, which way does the wind blow?" Simon, who had been gazing out the window deep in sorrowful reverie, jumped at being addressed, but replied, "It still